I live in the American Gardens building on West 81st Street on the 11th floor. My name is Zach Hergert. I'm 35 years old. I'm the host of an award-winning podcast. I believe in taking care of myself and a balanced diet and a rigorous exercise routine. In the morning, if my face is a little puffy, I'll put on an ice pack while doing my stomach crunches. I can do 1,000 now. After I remove the ice pack, I use a deep pore cleanser lotion. In the shower, I use a water-activated gel cleanser, then a honey almond body scrub, and on the face, an exfoliating gel scrub. Then I apply an herb mint facial mask, which I leave on for 10 minutes while I prepare for the rest of my routine. I always use an aftershave lotion with little or no alcohol, because alcohol dries your face out and makes you look older. Then moisturizer. Then an anti-aging eye balm, followed by a final moisturizing protective lotion. There is an idea of Zach Hergert, some kind of abstraction, but there is no real me, only an entity, something illusory. And though I can hide my cold gaze, and you can shake my hand and feel flesh gripping yours, and maybe you can even sense our lifestyles are probably comparable, I simply am not there. I can be found on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, and anywhere else podcasts are heard. Don't just look at it, eat it. Fun fact, Christian Bale has a very thick English accent and a bit of a lisp. So here's a tip if you'd like to do a decent impression of Patrick Bateman from American Psycho. You slow down your pattern of speech and you over-enunciate. Anyway, that was fun. So far that's been my favorite intro. I really like that. I really like Christian Bale. American Psycho is a classic movie. Really bizarre. I don't know who dreamed that up, but anyway. So today I want to talk to you guys about using the rules to your advantage. This is a fun one. This is going to be lots of fun. There's going to be lots of operating in the gray, which is always good. So in order to take advantage of whatever situation you're in, God, I'm struggling now that I don't have a script in front of me. So to take advantage, you want to know all of the rules, because it's so funny. Like in real estate, everyone kind of has like a herd mentality. So if most people are writing ads one way or doing open houses one way, then everyone feels like they have to do it that way. And there are some agents out there that will do like raffles. They'll give away money if you go to their open house, or they'll like rebate you on closing or pay part of your closing costs or whatever. One guy like gives away trips, and sometimes agents like get upset about that. But then it's like, well, if you would just have taken the time to read the rules, all of the stuff that this guy is doing is totally legal. And it's kind of stupid that you're not doing it, because he's just basically like benefiting off of everybody else having a herd mentality and not doing the research. Some other things that people don't know about is like taking advantage of like tax law to lower your income tax, or in some cases you can make income like tax-free. That's one thing I do with house flipping. Though I'll touch on that later down the road. And a lot of other things like that. So we're going to kind of explore an idea, and it's like pretty in depth, but hear me out, because this is like really good. This is what like a lot of people, like at some of like the richest people in the world, this is how they like make money. This is how they keep their money. And there's a famous American political family you may have heard of called the Clintons, and this is how they made the majority of their money. And the way they did it was trying to basically cure people of diarrhea in Africa. So we'll get to it. So what I'm talking about is I'm talking about starting a nonprofit business. So when I'm talking about a nonprofit, I'm talking about a business that operates as a 501c3 corporation. So when you think of like most nonprofits, like let's say like the Salvation Army, things like that, I believe that they do operate as a 501c3, and that's the most common way to set up a nonprofit. So a 501c3 has a couple different benefits. The first one is obvious. It's exempt from federal income tax. It's also exempt from federal unemployment tax, or FUTA. They can accept contributions that are tax deductible for the donor. So let's say you have some clothes that you're not wearing anymore, or something like that, or just like clothes you got from like a family member and you don't like them and you want to get rid of them. So you donate them to the Salvation Army. Well, the Salvation Army takes that donation, and they turn around and like sell it generally, like if it's clothing. And then you get to deduct on your taxes, like what the clothing you donated were worth. So it's also beneficial to you. The other thing is, this is important. So another thing is that 501c3s are also eligible for government and federal grants. So that's going to be important moving forward when we get more into this. They're also possibly eligible for some state and local tax exemptions. So let's just go back over that real quick. You don't have to pay income tax. You don't have to pay unemployment tax. You can get government grants. And in some cases, you don't have to pay local taxes. So that's like already like pretty good. That's amazing, actually, because a regular business, you have to do all of those things. So you're like, well, how does that like really help me? So I'm going to quick go through like an article I found on CBS. I found this article probably in 2012 when I first looked at this idea because I thought it was really good. So I'm just going to basically like read you part of the article that has to do with this idea, and then we'll kind of like go back over it and break it down. And I know that it might be kind of like boring for me to like read part of an article, but if you just listen to what this guy did, it is literally so juicy, and you never ever hear of anybody like talking about this strategy. So I'm just going to jump kind of to the middle of an article, and we're going to follow this guy. His name is John Waskin. He was 62 at the time of this article. He founded a charity to help people get out of debt, also known as a credit counseling agency in Cornelius, North Carolina. So when folks in financial trouble consult outfit like Waskin's, which was called the American Credit Counselors Corporation, or ACCC for short, they all receive the same basic help: a debt management plan, or a DMP. A counselor by phone, internet, or in person examines their liabilities and income, figures out how much they can reasonably pay without starving, and then negotiates with credit card companies, banks, and department stores for lower payments. Clients then make one monthly payment to the agency, which sends the dough to the creditors. In exchange, the counseling agency receives a, quote, fair share payment from lenders, historically as much as 15% of the money recouped. So if you didn't pick up on that, if I'm a credit counselor and I get someone to start paying, I basically get a commission of up to 15% of their payments. Many agencies also charge their strapped customers fees, and Waskins asks for donations of $25 a month. And as a charity, counseling agencies can also receive contributions. Bank of America gave this guy $320,000 in 2002. Citibank, Discover, and MasterCard also showered the company with money. Over the years, Waskins collected $218,000 in annual compensation, quite a bit for the head of a small charity. So pay attention, because here's where it gets real juicy. And his wife Cheryl was also on the payroll. But there's more. For 2 years, ACCC paid Pinnacle Credit Management $4.2 million to to, among other things, send payments to their creditors. Guess who owned Pinnacle? Our friends John and Cheryl Waskin. Another company owned by the Waskins. Promotional Marketing Concepts collected $700,000 in the same 2 years for sending clients a newsletter, and Cheryl Waskins charged ACCC for office space. Such arrangements are ethical only if the board is independent and makes decisions that don't benefit its own members. Waskins claimed that neither he or his wife sat on the board, but in fact it was composed solely of the two of them. Of their neighbors. So, okay, hold on here. So you'd think that the Waskins would be thrilled with all the money they were collecting. But in 2005, the agency folded and the Waskins received a $5.1 million pension, about the same as their company ACCC's annual budget. Some $2.8 million came from the sale of its database of debtors to a Florida credit counseling company. So I know that that's probably a lot to take in over a podcast. So let me just break it down. These people said, what's a good thing we could do to make money? Well, let's start a non-for-profit credit debt collection company, basically. And they marketed it as like help you get out of debt. So they charged the people they helped $25, not a huge fee. But then they also got, quote, donations from the companies they were doing debt collection for. And they were getting a commission for the debts that they recovered. So like everywhere they turned, they were making money. Oh, and by the way, all the money they were making was tax-free. So that's pretty amazing. The other way they collected money to make it, or the way they actually profited as individuals was not by actually working in their non-for-profit. It was by setting up businesses all around the non-for-profit business that charged the non-profit business that they owned. So one of the things that was in here is these people owned the building that their non-for-profit operated out of. So they basically charged themselves rent. The other thing that they did is their non-for-profit would send out a monthly newsletter, and a third-party company that they owned would send it out, and they were charging the company $700,000 a year to send out a monthly newsletter. So really, like, if you have a nonprofit, the best thing to do with it is to set up companies all around it that act as a way to get your money out of the nonprofit into your pockets. So, and like it kind of went over in this like short article, all of this stuff is like completely legal. Is it 100% ethical? Well, no, I mean, not really. It's gray, obviously. I mean, maybe it is, maybe it's not. You don't really know. I mean, obviously they got some people out of debt. There's some other stuff in the article about like how successful they were, but like I understand guys don't want me like reading tons and tons of numbers. Makes sense. So like, why is this so good? Like what are some other like things we can think about besides like debt collecting? Because I know like debt collection, like companies and like debt restructuring companies like that, those are like really hard to get certified, or it's hard to get them like to nonprofit status for a couple of reasons. That was like obviously one of them, because credit card and other credit companies were like giving quote donations to these places, and it like came under the spotlight. So those are like pretty hard. But when I was researching this for myself, I was like, well, at the time, like gasoline was like really expensive and diesel fuel was really expensive. At the time I was looking at this, diesel fuel was like $4.20 a gallon in Omaha. So for me to fill up my truck was like $125 or $130, depending on the rate at the time. So and like a lot of stuff was going on. There was like a big push for like green energy and like alternative energy, like windmills and like all that stuff. So that was like really popular. And the other thing that was popular and still is now is state, local, and like the federal government is trying to like make sure that like towns, like rural small towns in Nebraska and lots of other states don't just like completely dry up. Because in a lot of states, like people are leaving small towns, and small towns are just getting like smaller and smaller and smaller, and cities are getting larger and larger. So states, especially in Nebraska, this is like a really big problem. States are like doling out money for you if you open a business in a small town. So a lot of like little towns in Nebraska now have like a manufacturing, like a medium-sized like manufacturing company. There's a town I sold a house in. It's Lyons, Nebraska, and there's like really nothing in town. There's only like two things you can really do. One is farm, well, three. One is farm. The other is work at the co-op, and then the other one is in town. There's like a small manufacturer of farming equipment. I think like grain bins, stuff like that. So basically, everyone in town like works there. So. And if you start one of those companies out there, like the state of Nebraska will give you like major, will give you like really incentivizes it. So they'll give you like tax breaks. They'll give you like, they might give you some like grants, maybe even like forgivable grants. So my idea, and like the actual like business. Okay, so I'll just tell you my idea, and then I'll kind of like give you like a little bit of a tweak on like what I think that you should do if you're interested in doing this. So my idea was there was a tons of like federal, state, and local grants for like researching alternative like energy sources. So my idea was, and they do this like all the time in Europe, is I wanted to like set up a non-for-profit like research company where we would like research how to like turn cooking grease into like biodiesel. Now, like people do this. I think that like on the West Coast, they do this a lot. Like I said, they do it like all over Europe. And at the time, like it was getting like pretty popular for people to do like in their own backyards, because people like me were like, I have like a mowing and like a junk removal business, and I'm literally paying like $125 a week in fuel cost. So like what you could do is like you could buy some stuff online, like a little like setup online, along with like some like engineering like mock-ups of like how to do it. And it was basically like a little like still, or like a little like manufacturing, like basically it looked like a still, like how they make moonshine. But what it did is it would like break down and purify like the cooking oil, and then you like added some like additives into it, and then like this little like setup would like cook that into like biodiesel. But it wasn't really like commercially like viable. So it was only big enough for you to like do it in your backyard as like kind of a hobby thing. So I was like, oh, like this would be like this is like a good opportunity to start like a non-for-profit, because what I could do is I could like set up a non-for-profit where we like try to find like the best way to like manufacture like biodiesel, and then like sell it on like a big enough scale where I could like be supplying, like whatever, like 6 or like 30% of the amount of people in like Omaha that like use diesel or something like that. So that was kind of like the like rough idea that I had. And then what I was going to do is I was going to open it in like a small town, like right outside of Omaha. So the reason that I would do that is I'd be like eligible for lots of federal grants, because there was tons of federal grants for alternative energy at the time. I think it was like 2010. It would be eligible for also, there was state grants for researching that kind of thing. Then there was also like private grants through like university stuff like, I guess a university isn't private. There's like university grants. There's private grants for like individuals that were like, bleeding hearts. And then the other thing is like I would get like local tax breaks for opening like a business in like a small town. And then I could also potentially get like, if I wanted to build like a building out there, like you could get some also like tax incentives to like build a building in these small towns. So I'm already getting like tons of handouts if I do this. So then what I would do is, so think of it as like the non-for-profit is like the middle cog in a wheel. And then off of all those cogs, you're going to build other businesses that are for profit that perform services that help your non-for-profit business run. So like one thing for this is like, it was like, well, I have to like start a like some sort of like pumping company to go out and like find the like to find where I can like get like this like cooking oil that's been used, because it was recycling cooking oil. So I was like checking all the box, recycling, clean energy, blah blah. So I was like, well, the first thing is I have to like get a trucking company with like a pump to be able to pump grease. So like right there, you're setting up a trucking company. The other thing is like you need a building to put this in. So you're going to start like a real estate business that like rents out industrial buildings, and then you buy the building with that for-profit company and rent it out to your non-for-profit company. I'm going to need like bookkeeping for my business and like compliance. So I'm going to like start a business that does bookkeeping and compliance. And then I'm going to need like a lot of like grant writing going on. So I'm going to like start like a grant writing business. So it just goes on and on and on until like you have so many businesses around it that like everything that the non-for-profit does, all the money that they get is just going to be going to your for-profit businesses. And like that's really the only like thing that like a non-for-profit usually produces. So you've probably seen things going around like around Christmas or whatever. And well, I shouldn't say every nonprofit. That's really not fair. I mean, the Red Cross, a lot of those like do a lot of good things, but you always like find out that like every politician like has some bizarre foundation, or the other thing is like every like retired professional athlete has them. Every like famous musician, everyone in Hollywood that like makes tons of money has them, because like you can shelter lots of money doing this. And you can also make lots of money off of like who you are. So let's look at like the Clintons. And I would first of all, I would never commit suicide because I am too much of an egomaniac. So if you ever hear that I committed suicide, please investigate it as a murder, because just like Jeffrey Epstein, I would never kill myself. So like the Clintons, this is like the famous one that everyone always talks about, is like they had the Clinton Global Initiative, and they would fly all around the world and like do all these wonderful things for people. And their main thing was curing diarrhea in Africa. Well, think about that, because you get diarrhea from, and they were really saying clean water. So that basically means diarrhea, because if you drink unclean or like bad tap water or bad water, you get dysentery so bad you die. So a lot of people don't know this, but like the number one cause of death in the entire world is dysentery. So diarrhea. So they were like, well, one of our main goals is to cure diarrhea in Africa. Well, you can never provide all of Africa with clean drinking water. So one of the main things you want to do if you do decide to do something like this is you have to make sure that the non-for-profit company you set up can never ever achieve its goals. So you're always gonna have a sales pitch to get money from people who might want to give you money for your research, or might want to give you money for your like you're working on your cure, you're working on your like anti-diarrhea pill. So you always like have a never-ending sales pitch, and the problem that you're going after never ever gets solved, because if the problem ever got solved, your company would just fold up and go away. So like the Clintons had the like diarrhea in Africa. There's other people have them, like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. It's like we're gonna like cure AIDS all over the whole world, or like they're always like these things that like never ever end. And you can also look at that too as like green energy, like climate change and everything like that. So that's like a good sales pitch too, because you can never ever like, the climate is like literally always changing. You're never going to be able to stop it. So that's like a fantastic sales pitch, because it never ever ends. So you want to make sure that you get involved with something that like never ever gets solved. So it's just a never ending thing. So what I would do if I was going to start something like this today is I would literally go to, I guess there's probably like some websites you can do, but I would just go in and try to find like what are some areas where there are like, there's lots of like government, federal government grants, and foundation grants available. And then I would just pick whatever topic has the most money available. Because what we want to do is we really want to like just find like the main vein of the most money we can get our hands on and then start there. So, and I'm sure that there's like tons out there. I didn't like research that for this episode because there's so many out there that you could like find something that maybe doesn't have like tons of competition. I'm sure like the big ones like finding a cure for AIDS, like global warming, all that stuff. Like there's going to be other like huge non-for-profits like vying for that cash. So try to get something a little bit more niche, we're always like going for a niche. But I think that that's like a wonderful thing if you could get it set up. Now, obviously like setting up a 501c3 is extremely difficult. It's extremely difficult to like get it approved. The other thing is like once you like settle on like some mission statement and settle on some like purpose for your non-for-profit business, I don't think you could like ever change it. So they're like pretty specific as far as like what you can do with them. So you can't really change. But I think that could be like a really good idea for anyone who like wanted to get into something like that. And like people make tons of money all the time with non-for-profits. The caveat is if you're like, oh, I want some more research. Nowadays, you like really have to dig because there's lots of articles about, I'm a millennial. I tried to set up a 501c3 because I want to start like a non-for-profit for like killing, like making sure like animals don't die or like making sure like they're trying to get a cure for feline AIDS. And they're like, and I couldn't make any money doing it. So you have to watch out for those. Watch out for articles about anything business. Pay attention to who's writing them. If it's some millennial that's getting $20 for a 3,000 page or 3,000 word essay, I would take what they're saying with a grain of salt because they obviously don't have any horse sense if they're giving away their fucking time for $20. So if you guys need more info about a nonprofit, you can holla at your boy. You can contact me and I'll give you some good resources for it if you'd like. So that's kind of an interesting idea. It's not specific, it's broad, but if you work it, you can get rich. And make sure you pick something with a good sales pitch that really tugs on the old heartstrings because that's where the money's at. Remember, like I always say, you're going after women. Anytime we're selling anything or setting up a service, you have to be doing it with a woman in mind. So when I flip a house or remodel a kitchen, I'm selling those products to women because women spend money. They also donate money. So we want to make sure that whatever we're going to be doing for a non-for-profit, you really want it to tug on the heartstrings, especially of women, because they're the ones that are going to like attend these like galas with their husband where you're selling, a meal for like $10,000 a plate. So make sure it's appealing to women, make sure it's something they can get on board for, and then also make sure it's something that's so good that you'll have a bunch of people out there evangelizing for like what you're doing. So if you're doing something so good, and it has such a good message, if you can start getting like, stay-at-home soccer moms and stuff like that to go out and start like telling their friends about it and how like this amazing non-for-profit and what they're doing, that's the road to riches. For sure. Anyway, moving on. Like I said, if you guys want more information, let me know. So moving on to the business for sale of the EP, I almost said week, but I'm doing them every day, is we're really shifting gears. This is completely different than a non-for-profit. And it is an equipment rental business priced under the value of the assets. And it is in Glenwood Springs, California. And what they do is they rent out all kinds of different construction equipment like lifts, skid steers, things like that. And this is actually like a really good deal. And it could be a really good deal for a couple of reasons. So the asking price is $2.65 million. $2,650,000. It cash flows $761,000. So for something like this, that's like a pretty decent price because it's about, what is that? It's a little bit over like 3 times earnings, which that's like pretty good for this because they're basically saying that they're setting it up as an asset sale, which is good because companies like this have so many like physical assets that you should be able to finance like a big portion of the asking price. So something like this, you could probably finance like 80% of it if you would like with an actual like SBA loan. And then you would just have to divide up the remaining 20% between you and the seller or investors that you have in the seller is how I would do it. If you're buying like a houses to flip or like rental houses or like a business, don't ever put your own money in it. That doesn't make sense to me. If you're going to be doing all the work, why are you like putting all your own money in it? You're doing all the work and you're taking all the risk with like signing your name on the loan. So like, why throw your own money into it? That's a different topic. So I'll just kind of go over this. This is like a pretty interesting business. So the biggest reason this business is still available is that the seller has made the sale of the business contingent on the purchase of the real estate at closing. But he's changed his mind. For the first time, he has agreed to allow the property to be leased instead of bought. So that's good. That's going to make it easier. Makes it more appealing because we don't really want to own the real estate. We don't really care about that. It's not a real estate play. So he's also allowing for a long-term lease with that too. Duh, we already know that. So the owner, this is interesting. The owner spends 19 weeks in Alaska mining gold during the peak season every year. This negatively impacts the bottom line at an estimated $250,000 a year, which means they should have made at least $1 million. No, I don't care about that. A company you pay $2.6 million for, it shouldn't really matter if you're there or not. I don't like that. Okay, so this company has 4 main areas of revenue. One is equipment rental, obviously. They have over 100 pieces of equipment that they rent out and keep them maintained accordingly. They sell, rent, customized trailers, Caterpillar equipment, including D8s, compactors, Hyundai, Wacker light towers, generators, Genie man lifts, all fracking trailers, etc. So they have all kinds of different construction equipment, including mining and oil and gas equipment. They also do sales. They sell equipment, several big names. They provide service. They provide long-term service for different kinds of equipment and customization. The oil industry in particular has specialized requirements that they are uniquely able to fulfill. So they do. They cover construction and oil and gas, which is interesting. The other thing too is if you're interested in a business like this and it's in an industry that's like at the particular time you're looking at it is looking bad, you might be able to get a good deal. The other thing too is obviously the person that's selling this is more interested in mining for gold in Alaska than running this business. So if you could come to this guy and say, hey, like I'll put money in your pocket to go like up to Alaska and mine gold all year long, like let's just make a deal that works for both of us, you're going to be able to get a better price. So very interesting. The property that they're leasing is 11,200 square foot building with a 5.7 acres of property there. It can be seen from I-70. Like I said, it's in Glenwood Springs, Colorado. There's 6 full-time employees. And let's see what else. Sorry. All right. So if you'd like some more information on this, you can reach out to Jeff Chapman. Is Nagel. His phone number is 303-905-7607. Or if you didn't catch that and you'd like, you can just shoot me an email or contact me on Facebook or Instagram, whatever. I'll have that in the show notes. So that's like a pretty cool, like unique business for sale. And you don't see like a lot of equipment rental businesses for sale that often. And the ones you do see don't usually make it to like the big public sites because rental businesses are like really appealing for a variety of reasons. One is like, let's say you buy like a hydraulic lift. You're going to be able to rent that thing out for like 10 or 12 years before it gets to the point where it can no longer be like serviced and repaired. So like if you pay $50,000 for that thing or $100,000, but you rent it out at a rental rate of like $700 a day, and it's rented out like most days of the year, right? Because if like I'm Kiewit or if I like have a huge like commercial construction business, my projects go on for like years at a time. So like think in Omaha, they're doing like an expansion on like a children's hospital here. Well, it's been going on for like 3 years. So you're going to have that lift out on the job site for like 3 years. So that's like, $500 to $700 a day for like basically the whole time you have it. So 10 years. So you're getting a huge return on the stuff that you buy. The other thing is you're going to have tons of like repeat clients, and a company like this has tons of repeat clients already in place. And then the other thing is like they don't really have like tons of competition. Like there is some like national competition that you definitely have to like consider when buying that. But somebody like most people aren't going to be like, I'm going to go like buy 300 pieces of like heavy equipment and like start renting them out, because most people, even like me, I would have no idea like what to even buy. I don't know like on like big construction sites or like mining or oil and gas, like what they even use. So I do like that. I think that's good. Anything that you can like get constant like revenue out of is a good thing. So moving on to the businesses for sale. There's some good ones this week. I really like them. So the first one is a carpet cleaning business. Tons of competition with a carpet cleaning business. But I still like it. I know some people who have a carpet cleaning business. They've had it for like 10 years. The person who actually owns it has nothing to do with it. He just owns it. He just cashes checks to have it. But they're busy all the time. If you call them to get your carpet cleaned, they're like booked out for at least a week. They have a couple different crews that go out all the time. And it's like they're just like a money maker, because it's like kind of like mowing. There's lots of competition, but there's like literally so much demand, you really can't go wrong. The other thing with like carpet cleaning is like now after like the virus, COVID-19, in case you're listening to this 5 years from now, and there's been tons of them, COVID-19. After that is over, people are going to be like, well, I want my whole house cleaned. Like, I want to like start from like no bacteria. Or like another good thing about this too is like even like the flu, I think people are going to be more like, well, everybody in my house had the flu, so now it's like a good time to like have everything in the entire house disinfected. And carpet cleaning is like one place to like start with that. So I think like cleaning and like disinfecting and stuff like that is going to be like a lot more popular like going forward. I can't believe like how many people are like wearing masks now. I don't like really get it personally, but that's a different story. But it's like everyone is like wearing masks. They're wearing masks in their car when they're alone. Who the fuck do you think you're going to like? You think you're going to get like COVID-19 from yourself? That doesn't make any sense. People are wearing them all the time. We just took my son in for like his first like battery of like shots. And I don't need any anti-vaxxing. Like, if you want to comment about that, just keep it to yourself. So we went into the doctor's office, and it's not like at a hospital. It's just like a clinic or whatever. And they like give you a mask like right when you get in there. So everyone's wearing a mask that's in there as a patient. And then you would think everyone who's like working at the doctor's office would have a mask on. Well, everybody did like in the lobby, but then like you went back to where like patients were going back in the rooms, and the women in the middle, that I guess they're like secretaries or like medical secretaries or whatever, like they had their mask pulled down around their neck. So it's like, you work at like a medical office. If there's any time to like have one of those stupid masks on, it would be like when you're in there. So I don't get it. So I think that people are paranoid and they're wearing them everywhere. So I think carpet cleaning, yeah, love it. Easy to operate. You can have like kids run it for you. Don't worry about it. The next one is, I think this would be like really fun, is an antique dealer, or like opening like becoming an antique dealer or whatever. So like, I really like this. And I kind of like, so like when I had my like trash out business, so for those of you who haven't listened to the other episodes, I had a business where I would clean out like foreclosed houses. But sometimes like they weren't really foreclosed on. Sometimes the people like just passed away and their kids were like so old that they were like, just like, let the bank have it. So I cleaned out this one house in like a historic part of Omaha, and the people that had passed away were like literally in their upper 90s. And their kids were like in their upper 70s or whatever. So they were like, fuck it. Like, we're not cleaning it out. So I cleaned it out, and these people had like tons and tons of like cool stuff, like antiques. So whenever I cleaned a house out that was full of like good stuff, what I would always do is I would like sell the stuff out of it. So I would go there to like bid the job. And while I was there to bid the job, I would take like good high definition photos of anything that I thought could be sold. And then when I got the job, I would just list all those things on like Craigslist or Facebook. And then I would just sell the stuff like directly out of the house. So it was like a really sweet gig. But most of the time it was like a kitchen table. Those were good sellers. A kitchen table with like chairs where you could like shine up the top. You could get like a couple $100 for like nothing. So that was good. But one house that I cleaned out, they literally had like tons of antiques, like old like typewriters, an old bird cage, crap like that. And I was like, well, I didn't know anything about that kind of stuff. I don't know like the values of a typewriter from 1920. So I like threw it on Craigslist, and like it sold right away, and I got like top dollar for it. So I was like, oh, that's like really cool. And then we were upstairs, and the house had like a partially finished dormer. So a finished dormer, like if you're not like familiar with old houses, it's kind of like an attic space where just like the middle of the attic is finished into like kind of like usually like a long bedroom. And then most of the time there's like little like shelving that you can remove to get to like the attic space behind there. So we were like cleaning out the attic space behind there, and I found like an old map, and it was like an old battle map from like World War II, probably like the unit of the guy that lived there. And like on the back there, like everybody in the unit or company, I don't know anything about that, like signed the back of it. So it was like an original battle map from World War II. So I'm like, oh, that's like really cool. So I was going to go have it appraised, but like I can't find an appraiser in Omaha. But I looked it up online, and I think it could be worth like maybe like $5,000. So anyway, like an antique dealer, you would just like buy and sell stuff like that battle map or like old typewriters, stuff like that. I think that could be like really good. And I think that the key to that is you'd have to like specialize in a couple different things. So like you could like specialize in stuff from like World War II, or like stuff from like a certain place, something like that. You'd kind of have to like specialize and just go after like those specific things. And you'd have to go after things that you could actually like buy cheap and like sell. So I think that that's like really cool. Like that would be like something that would be interesting to me to do. And I think that if you could source the stuff, that would be the hardest part, right? Is finding the stuff to sell. If you could like source it and like set up a strategy to source things, I think you could actually make a lot of money doing that. Like a rare art dealer, that's sort of like an antique dealer. So yeah, I like that one too. I think that's a cool idea. You might have to start it part-time at first and then like work it into a full-time thing, but I like it. The third one is really fucking weird, and it is a clown service. So a clown service, I guess you dress up like a clown and like go to like birthday parties or like bar mitzvahs. And I had to do some like research about this because I had no idea what you can make as a clown. Apparently the average clown charges $200 an hour to clown, I guess. And so if you have a calling to be a clown, apparently there is at least some money in it. However, birthday parties and bar mitzvahs don't. That's like a weekend, night and weekend thing. You're not going to be going to like birthday parties in the middle of the day, usually. The other thing too is like I've been to like a lot of birthday parties. Even I've been to like a lot of like birthday parties for like relatives or like my aunt and uncle, for, like they're small, like my cousins when they were little. I'd never been to a birthday party where there was a clown. I don't think I've ever been anywhere besides like a Barnum and Bailey circus where there was a clown. So it might be hard to like find gigs to be a clown, but I guess if you could find the gigs and you could charge $200 an hour, like that's okay with me. So I say yes to clown service, but I think that that's like more of a part-time thing. So carpet cleaning, yes. Antique dealer, yes. Clown service, maybe as a side gig. Don't love it, but it's okay. Kind of like I said in the opening, if you guys, or I think I said it last time, if you guys wouldn't mind, it would really help me out if you guys could share the show on social media, tell your friends about it. I'm just going to keep it going. But if you guys could help me grow the show, I would really appreciate that. Also, you guys can hit me up on Facebook, Instagram. I have a YouTube channel now, and anywhere that podcasts can be heard. So until next time, we'll see you later, guys. Thanks.